So what was it like to open the parks, close the parks as a PhotoPass photographer? Well, it definitely gave you some unique views and perspectives of the parks. Opening the parks, closing the parks, being there before the guests were, being there after the guests were, was definitely interesting part of being a PhotoPass photographer. You got to see and do things that most other people wouldn't. It definitely gave you some interesting experiences. So, how did our days start? What was it like? What was it like at the end of the day when you wrapped things up? Your day, if you were opening, started before the guests got there. Generally, before the guests even started lining up at the gates. Depending upon the park, you may walk through the park on your way to come in. Epcot depended upon where you parked. Studios, you would actually walk through a portion of the park before it was open. Magic Kingdom, you came in through the back and then you actually came underneath the park. And so it was just all cast members that you would see. You'd head to what we would call our base, our place where we checked in, where we clocked in, where we got our assignments for the day if we didn't know them already. There were a couple different things you may end up doing. You might get assigned to open up the View, which is the store where guests could come in and see their pictures. They could buy them if they wanted. So it was usually part of a store, and you would have merchandise people in there as well. We did try to open the View up either just before or as the park opened, so that way it was ready to go for guests coming in if they had questions or problems or something like that. If you opened the View, you came in, you had to turn on all the computers, all the printers, make sure that everything was working right. And so you kind of had this quiet time in this store as you're getting everything ready to go. Generally, the guests didn't come in to see pictures or have PhotoPass questions when the park opened. So it was really quiet most of the time. So most of us, if we opened up the View, once we had everything turned on, ready to go, and running, we would step out to the front of the store out on the sidewalks and we would say hi to the guests coming in. If you were one of the first photographers, though, you were usually lined up somewhere where the guests were coming in. So at Magic Kingdom, you're on Main Street. If you're at Hollywood Studios, it's Hollywood Boulevard. If it's Epcot, you may be up in front of Spaceship Earth, or you might be on the other side, what we call the back side of it. Again, catching the guests as they come in the parks and getting their pictures as they first walk in. You might even get in front of the train station at Magic Kingdom. No, it's not the castle, it's the train station. The biggest thing to be aware of if you were a photographer on the street was the stampede. Because once those gates opened, it was a wave of people. The way they did rope drop at each park was a little different, but you knew to be very careful and to be ready to duck and dodge and move and wave high and let people know you were there. And if you did get people to take a picture of, hopefully you didn't get run over from behind, especially by scooters and strollers.
Oh, look, it's their back. Let's go hit them. Come on, Mod!
Yeah. Got my ankles and the back of my legs hit a number of times because people couldn't see right in front of them. Part of it was because the crowds are moving back and forth, but yeah. Or you'd have those people that would push their strollers right into the ruts of the trolley tracks so they could get them stuck. Or the wheelchairs. Mornings were very special sometimes. It would go from this quiet, serene, beautiful view of the castle or Spaceship Earth, and you're just enjoying it, to Mad Mob House, run him over, die. It was crazy. Keep that smile on your face, wave at everybody. Hi, happy to see you. Don't kill me, please. It was definitely quite interesting. Now, before we got to that stage, though, we did have to stop in, check in at our base, and we would pick up our equipment. Equipment was assigned to each different location, so depending upon where you were on Main Street, you may have a different lens on your camera to get a better picture. If you were with a character, you'd have a different lens. Character photographers usually came in a little bit later because they waited till the park had been open just a little bit before they got shooting. But you would get your equipment, you'd make sure you had batteries, you'd make sure you had photo cards, you made sure that everything was working. You'd get all signed in, because we had a little PDA, we did have to sign in and register that it was us and where we were going to shoot, and test it all to make sure everything was good to go before we went out. Because you didn't want to get out there and then not have your equipment work. Especially if you're ducking and dodging all those people. That could be scary and bad. That was basically what opening was, and then once you're shooting, or once you're over the view and it's open, you're just kind of running all day. You're either taking pictures of the guests, or you're helping them in the store. At that point, it got pretty routine. Closing time would be a little different, depending upon where you were in the park. If you were shooting, if you're on Main Street or someplace like that, we would shoot on tripods at night, so that way we could get the best picture possible. Now they crank up the ISO a bunch, and so they can handhold it, but we didn't handhold night shots back then. It still comes up better on a tripod, I think. But we would have to watch the tripods. If you had a night parade, we would oftentimes pull out for the night parade, and then we might have a few come back out and shoot pictures again after that. But generally the night parade or the fireworks was kind of our cue to end for the night, depending upon if the park was open later. We also had lights that we attached to the tripods to try to make us a little easier to see, so people would see at least this glowing, floating light right there, and hey, there's a camera and a photographer, let's not hit them. That was very helpful. When it did come time for us to go, if there's a parade or the fireworks, we kind of had set cues. Maybe it was a musical note on the soundtrack that was playing or something. But we would know when, okay, that's our time to pack up. Turn the light off, collapse the tripod, get the light clipped on so we don't drop it, because it was a big ring light. Make sure the camera's all set to go, and then kind of pull out, wind through the crowds a little bit. Hey, good to see you. I got to get over there. Get out of the way. It's like the parting of the Red Sea sometimes, trying to get through them. And then head off to the side, and then into the backstage area where we would go check in. Epcot was the same kind of thing. We would wait until illumination started, and then just as it started, we would pack up our tripods, because it would be stationed all the way around World Showcase. There typically would be 3 or 4 of us out there, and then a couple up at Spaceship Earth. The ones at Spaceship Earth had to wait just a little longer until they got to pack up. But as illuminations was about to start, we would pack up. And typically what was easier for me at Epcot was if I was over at the United Kingdom Pavilion, for example, our base was over behind China. It was easier for me to actually walk through the World Showcase kind of along the back, and you'd learn all these nice little paths behind the guests while they're all up at the water side. Just walk all the way through in the dark, because it was dark, so people could see the show, holding your tripod, holding your camera and all your gear, typically your lunch bag at that point, because you've been over there for a little while. And just kind of winding through the people as they're watching illuminations and singing along with the music and watching it out the side because you've seen it 100 times already, but hey, it's one more. And then once you would get backstage, it would be heading towards the base, turning in your equipment, handing them the tripod, handing them the light, making sure everything was still good to go, turning off your stuff, giving it to the equipment people so they could get it all cleaned up, prepped, and ready to go for the next day. And then at that point, just waiting for the clock to tick down so you could clock out and head home. If you were in the view, it was a little different. You would start getting busier come the evening time as people were getting ready to leave. They want to see their picture. So you would have a lot of people in the view. In fact, several of the photographers who had been out shooting, once darkness hit, they would actually pack up their equipment and they would head to the view first and be ready to go there. And then after the view closed later, they would take their equipment over to the base and check it in. So we would typically at night, we'd have some of the photographers head inside and get ready for the crowds that were going to come, because they were going to come. The view would be steady before that, but then as night hit, it got busy, especially right after the fireworks, the parades, the illumination show, whatever the big closing thing was for the night. You knew as soon as that was over, you were going to get slammed with this massive wave of people. At studios, it was phantasmic, and you just kind of got ready for it. Typically, you would be fairly busy before that anyways, so most of you would be on a computer helping guests. But then as that wave came in and the line grew, you also got into the habit of, as you were helping the guests, of looking up occasionally and saying, "Hey folks, we're going to be with you as quick as we can. Thank you so much for waiting." And then back to helping them. And just every few minutes, "Hey, thank you for waiting. We'll be helping you as fast as we can." And just trying to get all those guests out. Once you finally got them all out, and typically it was 45 minutes to an hour after closing, later sometimes, we couldn't leave until every last guest was helped and merchandise was closing the doors and locking them. Once that was the case, then we could go through, we could turn off all the computers, turn off the printers, clean up everything, because if we had trash left over, we wanted to at least make sure it was in the garbage cans. We didn't have to take it out. Custodial would take care of that later. But we basically got everything prepped and set, picked up any cameras that were still there, and our closing gear. If we had pin lanyards, we would hang those up in a closet that was nearby, and then we would head on out. Clock out, turn in all the gear, and then you'd walk out, and oftentimes you'd be walking out to a quiet, empty park. At Magic Kingdom, you got to see the Kiss Goodnight on the Castle on a regular basis. There was two. There was one for the guests that was done right about closing time, and then there was another one that was an hour afterwards that was same show, but that one was for the cast saying thank you so much for working. I don't know if they even still do that anymore. With the other parks, you got to watch some of the lights dim. You got to watch the stores close. I enjoyed, especially at Magic Kingdom, I loved walking out after the park closed. If I had been working in the view, instead of going through the utilidors on the way out, I enjoyed coming back up and walking through the empty park on the way out for the night. That was just really cool. The music would still be playing. There would still be lights on. Just enjoying the end of the day, the coolness of the air, and knowing that you'd made it through another one. And that you'd have to be there at 7 in the morning the next day to start it all over again. So that's a little look at opening and closing at Disney. It was fun. It was a unique experience. Do you have any questions that I didn't answer in it? Would you like to know more? Did you open and close a park? What was it like? I'd love to hear. Please share in the comments below. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget as well to hit that like button, share it with others, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you as well to my financial patrons for helping with their support of the channel. If you want to know more about that and the perks that come with it and behind the scenes and personal info and all sorts of other stuff, check the description below. There's a ton of info there. Thank you so incredibly much for watching. God bless. What are you doing, cat? My cat's running in circles. You might end up opening what we call the View, which is the store where you could... We did try to open the View up. Generally, guests didn't come into the store before... Generally, guests didn't come in to see pictures before the park opened. Or I know that. They can't get in before it opens. If you're on Main Street or something... At that point, when we would pull out, it would be fold up the... But we would... Once... Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to know about contact information, fan pages, merchandise, and more, please be sure to check the description below. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to know when I have new ones, well, make sure you hit that subscribe button right up there. And if you want to see another one of my videos, well, I've got a great one for you right here. And a huge thank you to these wonderful people here who support me on Patreon and with YouTube memberships. They get behind the scenes information, special perks, and more. If you'd like to know more about that, well, make sure you check that button right there. Thank you so much.